Afternoon, guys. So today is Wednesday. We're on 2.3 part B on your timeline, which is actually day 4. Okay, so let's just make sure we're on the right day. All right. So in today's lesson, yesterday's lesson was a simple trinomial. Today's lesson, there's going to be a number for an a value. So yesterday there was an a value of 1. Today there's going to be a number for an a value, okay? So just a reminder that I hope my video and audio is on the same page there. If there's a little bit of a delay, I apologize for that, but I'm sure you can work through it, okay? So it says here, when factoring a quad expression where a is not equal to 0, that's yesterday's lesson, it can be factored using a variety of strategies, okay? So this one, we don't do the trial and error one, we do the decomposition one, okay? So we're going to skip method 1 over here, and we're going to go right to method 2. So there's an example there of an a value that's not 1. So in this case, the a value is 3. Okay. So step 1 says remove any common factors. So remember yesterday I told you make sure that that's the first step, regardless of what factoring strategy you have. Okay. Regardless of which question it is, you always have to make sure that that you're removing the common factor. In this case, we cannot, because there's not a number that 3 goes into evenly, okay? Does not go into 13, does not go into 10 evenly, okay? So we've done that. Step 2 says find two numbers whose sum is equal to b and whose product is equal to ac. So remember yesterday I said two numbers that multiply to c? It's actually a times c. But since yesterday the a was always a 1, we never bothered telling you that. But it is actually a times c. Okay? So ac is a times c. So it has to multiply to a times c. It's got to add to the middle term. Okay? So a times c in this case is negative 30. Okay, so multiplying to negative 30, adding to the middle term, negative 13. Okay? So we got to think of two numbers that multiply to negative 30. So your strategies again are, one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. So negative 30, you got a couple combinations there. So you got 6 times 5, or 6 times negative 5, but that doesn't add to negative 13, so it's not that. Okay? If you go negative 15 times 2, right? That'll add, or sorry, that'll multiply to negative 30, and it also adds to negative 13. Okay, so it's the same sort of step from yesterday as well. Okay? So we make our two brackets, okay? So in this case, we're going to drop the first term, which is 3. Actually, let's not do a bracket here. And I'll tell you why later. So here's decomposition. So you found the two numbers, negative 15 and 2. What we're going to do is we're going to drop the first and the last term and leave some space in the middle. Like that. So you're dropping your first and your last term. You're going to replace this negative 13x by these two numbers over here that you picked with the x variable. So I'm going to go minus 15x and then plus 2x. Right in the middle. So look what you're doing over here. You're basically replacing this negative 13x with negative 15x plus 2x, which is the same thing. Okay? So in decomposition, your first line should be 4 terms. And then what we do is we group the first 2 terms. So I'm on step 4 over here. We group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms, like that. Okay, now let's cover up this guy and let's just work with the first bracket. So I need you to common factor that first bracket. So coefficients first, I can pull out a 3. Okay, and I can also pull out an x. I'm going to make a bracket over here. So this is from a couple days ago. And then you go 3x times something is 3x squared. So you got to put an x here. And 3x times something is 15x. So you get minus 5. Okay, drop the plus. Second bracket, pull out a coefficient. What's common? You can pull out a 2. In this case, you cannot pull out an x. So make your bracket. And you go 2 times something is 2x. And then 2 times something is 10. And you get that. Now, look at my fingers. That's when you know you're right. Okay? When you have what we call a common bracket. Okay? So I'm going to drop the common bracket just once. And then I got my leftovers. Here are my leftovers. Okay? And you've successfully factored that expression using decomposition. Now think of the word decomposition. We're decomposing the 2 middle terms. Okay? So we grabbed this minus 13x and we decomposed it to 2 terms. That's how we come up with the word decomposition. Okay? You need to know how to do decomposition. And again, eventually I'm going to tell you why we factor. Okay? It's important to know the reasoning why we're factoring. Okay? Which I'm not going to tell you yet, but probably tomorrow I will tell you when I'm back there. Okay? So let's do the back now. And again, we're only doing decomposition. So number 2 there. So I got 4x squared minus 3x. Is that the same one? I have a different version over here. There we go. 4x squared minus 3x minus 1. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit for you here. All right. Okay, so first thing you do again is find a common factor if you can pull one out. In this case, you can't because you can't pull this 4 out. And that's the number that you always want to pull out. Okay, you want to pull out this first guy if you can. In this case, you can't. So you do 2 numbers that multiply to a times c. A times c is negative 4. Okay? And they must add to the middle. So add to negative 3. So again, strategies. One's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. Okay? So 2 numbers that multiply to negative 4. 2 numbers that multiply to negative 4. You might be thinking 2 and negative 2. But the problem with 2 and negative 2 is that it doesn't add to negative 3. So then you pick 2 other numbers. And maybe you're picking negative 4 and 1. And you test it. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. So those are the 2 numbers. Okay? So you drop your first and last term. Okay? And you replace the middle with the numbers that you had circled over here with, in this case, the x variable. So it's minus 4x plus, now don't put a 1x, you can just put x. Okay, and remember I said you need 4 terms, so there's your 4 terms. So your next step is put brackets around the first two and the last two. Okay, and then you common factor. So hide that guy. So you've got 4x squared minus 4x and you common factor it. So I could pull out a 4. I can also pull out an x. Okay, so 4x times something, 4x squared. I need an x here. Drop the subtraction. 4x times something equals 4x, 1. Drop the plus. I can't do anything here, just drop it. Now remember I said what you're looking for? This is what you're looking for. Okay, common bracket. If you don't get a common bracket, you've probably gone wrong somewhere. Okay, so now I'm going to drop the common bracket, just one of them, and my leftovers, 4x. What number is really there? Plus 1. And you're done. You fully factored it. Okay? All right, let's try number 3. So again, two numbers, or I'm sorry, you have to pull out a common factor. In this case, again, you can't because of this 8 messes things up, okay, and the 14. So 3 goes into 3, yes, but not into 14, not into 8. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to a times c, 3 times 8, 24. Add to the middle, 14. So do the multiplication first. Two numbers that multiply to 24. So you might be thinking 6 and 4, right? But 6 and 4 does not add to 14. Okay, so you got to think of another two numbers that multiply to 24. So maybe you're thinking 12 and 2. Test it. 12 times 2 is 24. 12 plus 2 is 14. So those are the two numbers. Okay? Your next step, grab your first and last term. Drop them. Leave some room in between. Replace the middle with those guys, with the x variable. Okay? So I got plus 12x plus 2x. Okay? Brackets. First set. Second set. And now cover up the second bracket. Okay? So I'm working with this bracket right here. So what can I pull out? I can pull out a 3x. Make a little bracket. 3x times something is 3x squared. 3x times something is 12x. Right? Drop this plus. Second bracket, what can I pull out? I can pull out a 2. Make a little bracket. 2 times something, 2x. 2 times something, positive 8. Right? Look what I got. Common bracket again. So drop the common bracket. And your leftovers. Here are my leftovers. Right? 3x plus 2. Now, understand this, guys. You're done the question. But if I do FOIL on this, from a couple days ago, if I do FOIL on this, I'll get my question as the final answer. So factoring and FOIL are the opposite, are two opposites, okay? All right, let's try this one. So I got 6x squared minus 7x minus 3. So common factor, you can't pull anything out, okay? And don't think that it's always like that. It's not. We're going to set it up where you can pull something out, okay, eventually. But in this case, you still can't. So a times c, 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. So two numbers that multiply to negative 18. Add to the middle. Again, your strategies. One's got to be positive, one's got to be negative because they got to multiply to a negative number. So two numbers that multiply to negative 18. Don't just write these numbers down without testing it. So test it. Negative 9 times 2 is negative 18. That's right. Negative 9 plus 2 is negative 7. Okay? So you're going to drop your first and last term. Make a lot of space in the middle here. Don't leave yourself short. Replace the middle with the x variable with these two numbers. So minus 9x, plus 2x. Okay, there's your four terms again. Okay, do your brackets. First set, second set. And now cover up this with your hand. I'm going to leave it uncovered, but you can cover that up if you want. Okay, it's kind of hard to do when you're right-handed and you got to write like this, so it's kind of weird. So I'm just going to do my first bracket over here. Coefficients, what can I pull out? I can pull out a 3. I can also pull out an x. And I make a little bracket. You know there's got to be a minus in there. And I go 3x times something, 6x. So it's got to be a 2x there. Right? Because x times x is x squared. And your second one, 3x times something, 9x. I need a 3 there. Okay? Plus, can't do anything here, just drop it. And look what you got. Here's your common bracket again. So drop the common bracket. And my leftovers. 3x. What number's here? Plus 1. And you're done. Okay? Last question here, just let me get the sheet out. Okay, so try pull out a common factor. In this case, you can't again. Okay, two numbers that multiply to 6, 3 times 2, add to the middle. Okay, what are the two numbers? Let me just put this underneath so it sticks a little bit. What are the two numbers? Multiply to 6, add to negative 5. So this is where strategies come in. So yes, they multiply to a positive number, but they got to add to a negative number. So that's where you know you have to have two negatives here. And if you're thinking negative 2, negative 3, let's test it. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. Negative 2 plus negative 3 is negative 5. So it checks out. Okay? Drop your first. Drop your last. Make sure you leave some room in the middle. Replace the middle with these two numbers with the x variable. Okay, there's your four terms. Group first two, group last two. Okay, this is a special case over here. I need you to pay attention eventually to the second bracket because it's a little bit tricky. Okay, first bracket, I can't pull out a coefficient. But I could pull out an x, right? I got x squared here, I got x here, so I could pull out an x, make a bracket, and I go x times something, 3x squared, so I need a 3x here. And then drop your subtraction, x times something, 2x, I need a 2 here. Okay, drop this subtraction, right? And I've got 3x plus 2. I can't do anything, but heads up over here, okay? You just can't drop this because of this subtraction sign over here. You have to change this to a subtraction sign, and I'll tell you why. Let me just change it. Because negative times 3x is negative 3x, that's fine. But now you've got a negative times a negative has to be a positive. Okay, and look what you got. Common bracket. Okay, so just a little bit of a tricky situation sometimes when there's a subtraction sign in there. Okay, when there's a plus sign in there, it never affects things. But when there's a subtraction sign in there, just heads up for that one, okay? Because if you drop this as a plus 2, if that was a plus, well, what you're saying is a negative times a plus is a plus? No, it's not. Okay? All right, so drop your common bracket. Your leftovers, x minus, what number's there? 1. And you're done. You've fully factored that. Okay, so follow your timeline. Okay, remember today is Wednesday. Okay, day 4, and I'm definitely back tomorrow. Okay.